Yeah, at least let me put that in real world terms. There was a representative for the advocacy group Justice in Aging. They told KFF Health, those who are most vulnerable with the fewest resources are the ones who will feel the harsh impacts of this change. Many are going to be unable to buy food or keep a roof over their head. Look, you worked in the George W. administration. You know what it's like to attempt a Social Security change. This is complicated stuff. But are there lessons that the Trump administration is failing to learn? Is this, I don't know, a basic question of decency?
Well, I was a young comms staffer in 2005, working in the speechwriting office in the Bush White House when there was the big Social Security reform push. And President Bush put a lot of his reelection political capital in it. He had the House, he had the Senate. He wanted to privatize part of Social Security, just giving young people the option of putting around 4% in their own savings account, retirement account, investment account, just to diversify and to give them a little more freedom over their money. And that doesn't even sound very radical, but he couldn't get bipartisan support for it. It simply is the third rail. You can't touch it. He had 55 Republican senators. We didn't have enough Democratic support to get a vote. There was never even a bill introduced. There wasn't a Republican majority that even wanted to push forth a bill and try to do something. So I think from just that example, you're hitting an area that Republican senators are really going to want to avoid because they hear about it immediately when their constituents are hurting and not getting their Social Security checks.
All right, let's talk about protecting the trust fund. And nobody wants to see it run out of money. Certainly you and I don't. The administration says, this is their number, this will save $7 billion over a decade. Sounds like a lot of money. For most of us, that's a huge amount of money. But if the federal budget stayed at $3 trillion for that decade, the savings that would accrue from this would amount to about 2/100ths of 1%. Is that worth it? Well, I mean, not even big picture, but is that worth it? Is it such an amount of money that it needs to be done now? You can't do it 10%, 10%, 10%.
It seems to be another example of DOJ coming in and wanting radical change immediately and not caring about what the actual human consequences are. And the example I've used that has offended some people is that it reminds me of when the Afghanistan withdrawal happened. People wanted to get out of Afghanistan, but they didn't want to do it in the way that it happened, in the horrible way it happened. And so right now, people do want reform of government, but they don't want to have it where it fundamentally disrupts so many lives and livelihoods of Americans, and for no good reason. It really just doesn't seem to make much sense to have such a draconian, harsh repayment of Social Security for people who are already income limited to begin with.
Well, yeah, and I think if you start to see the impacts that people who work in this realm talk about, people becoming homeless, people not being able to feed themselves, is it going to take that for the pressure to come in the way it did with cutting phone service for the disabled, right? Is it going to take that kind of suffering before there's a reconsideration?
Well, you've already seen at the town halls, Chris, anger over so many issues.
That's true, yeah.
Related to DOJ. And so this is really just such a hot button issue because everyone in their life, doesn't matter your partisan affiliation or how you lean, you have someone older in your life who depends on Social Security, unless, of course, you are a completely out of touch billionaire. You usually have someone in your life who knows and feels the impact of it. So this cuts really close to home for most Americans, except seemingly the ones trying to do this ill thought out reform.
Elise Jordan, thank you.